Okay. So for last Friday's Tanya Parshas Naso, the 13th of Sivan, we're in shaar, hayichud, emunah, the part of Tanya. It's like a separate book. It's a new chapter, chapter 4. In today's lesson, just as God has the unfathomable ability to create something from nothing and sustain it continuously, so does he have the equally incomprehensible ability to conceal his energy, so much so that it is indiscernible. Now this attribute of Hagadol, the great, the attribute of Chesed that spreads forth his life force into all the worlds so as to create them something from nothing, is exclusively the praise of the Holy One, blessed be He, for no created thing can create a being out of nothing and give it life. Vehine kamosha mida zohi shavachoi shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu levado, she'ein bichoiles shum nivra livroya yesh me'ayin u'hachayosai. Creation ex nihilo, something from out of nothing, is utterly beyond the realm of created beings. In the word of the Medrash, even if all mankind were to gather together, they would not be able to create even the wing of a gnat and animate it. This attribute of benevolence, of kindness, whereas God creates ex nihilo, something from nothing, is also beyond the cognition of all creatures and their understanding. V'gam mida zayhi lamayla mehaskalas kol habriim v'hasagasam. For it is not within the power of the intellect of any creature to comprehend through the faculty of chachma, or understand through the faculty of bina, this attribute and its ability to create a being out of nothing and vivify it, give it life. She'en kayach b'seichel shum nivra lahaskil uhasig mida zay v'yachalta livra yesh ma'ayin uhachayaisai. For creation out of something from nothing is a matter that transcends the intellect of all creatures, inasmuch as it stems from the divine attribute of Gadula. Ki habriya yesh me'ayin hu davar shelamayla miseichel hanivraim ki hi mimidas gadulasai shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now, the Holy One, blessed be He, and His attributes are a perfect unity. As the Holy Zohar states, He and His causations, in example, His attributes are one. HaKadosh Baruch Hu midasai achdus pashut. Kirisa hazayha HaKadosh de'ihu v'garmo hi chad. Garmohi chad. And just as it's impossible for the mind of any creature to comprehend its creator, so is it impossible for it to comprehend his attributes, for they are one with him. Ukshem she'ein bicholes shum seichel nivra hasig boroi kach eino yachol lahasig midosav. Until now, he has been speaking of the specific attribute of Gadula, or Chesed. The Alter Rebbe will now say that just as this attribute, which is responsible for creation, is unfathomable, so too with regard to the attribute of Gevura, or contraction. And just as it is impossible for the mind of any creature to apprehend his attribute of Gadula, which is the ability to create a being out of nothing and give it life, as it is written, The world is built by an example created through the attribute of kindness. Ukamoshe ein bicholas shum seichel nivra hasig midas godulaso shehi hayecholes livroya yesh me'ayin u'achayisai kadich siv oilam chesed yibana. Exactly so, it is impossible for it to apprehend the divine attribute of gevura, might and restraint, which is the faculty of tzimtzum, condensation or contraction, restraining from the spreading forth of the life force from his attribute of gedula. Ach mamish ein bicholto lahasig midas gevura so shel hakodesh baruch hu shehi midas atzimtzum nias his pashtus hachayos migdulaso, preventing it from descending upon the manifestation itself to the creatures and providing them with life and existence in a revealed manner, but rather with his countenance concealed. Mileiraid ulhisgalus al hanivraim achayosam ukayama begiloi ki im bahester panim. The divine activating force is at work within creation in a concealed manner. Thus, it is the attribute of gevura and tzimtzum that enables the life force to be concealed from every creature in its creating. It is creating. So, basically, the gevura attribute enables a person to feel, after they've been created, that nothing's creating them, and that they're independent of its source, which is obviously Hashem recreating them every second. For the life force concealed itself in the body of the created being. Right? That's what I just said. Making it appear as if the body of the created being had independent existence. I didn't realize I was going to say the same thing I just said, but it did. Shahachayos mistaster b'guv hanivra uchilu guv hanivra hu davar bifnei atzmai, and making it appear as though the created being was not merely an extension of the life force and spirituality that creates it, just like the diffusion of the radiance and light of the sun, but an independently existing entity. When you see the rays of light that come out of the sun, they start to look separate from the sun, but ultimately they're not independent as they might look. Their source is the sun itself. Ve'eno hispashtus achayus v'haruchanios kehispashtus haziv v'haor mehashemesh elahu davar mipnei atzmai. Although in reality the created being has no independent existence, and is only like the diffusion of light from the sun, va'af shabe'emes eino davar mipnei atzmai ela kamai hispashtus ha'or mehashemesh. Just as the sun's rays are merely a diffusion from the sun, so too all creation is but a diffusion of God's activating force. Since, however, created beings are continuously found within their source, unlike the sun's rays, which do leave their source, the divine source should cause them to be completely nullified within it. Just as the light of the sun is in a state of complete nullification when found within the sun, nevertheless this nullification is not felt by created beings, even though they are but a diffusion of God's activating force. For this capacity for self-concealment is precisely the restraining power of the Holy One, blessed be He, who is omnipotent. Mikol makim hein gevura sav shel hakadosh baruch hu asher kol yachol. God's omnipotence expresses itself not only in His ability to bring forth light and bestow life, but also in His ability to conceal the same light and life from the beings He creates, and hence able to condense the life force and spirituality which issues from the breath of His mouth, and to conceal it, so that the body of the created being shall not become nullified out of existence. L'tzamtzem hachayos v'haruchnios hanishpa me ruach piv uhastiroi, so that the body of the created being shall not become nullified out of existence, and hence, notwithstanding the fact that the created being is but a diffusion of the rays of its source, it is thus enabled to perceive itself to be an independently existing entity. Shelo yibatel guf hanivra bimtzios. It is beyond the scope of the mind of any creature to comprehend the essential nature of the tzimtzum and concealment, and to comprehend that nonetheless the tzimtzum, notwithstanding the creature itself, be created ex nihilo. V'zeh ein v'seichel shum nivra lahasig mahus hamin hatzimtzum v'haster. And to comprehend that nonetheless the tzimtzum, notwithstanding the creature itself, is being created ex nihilo. V'shayiyeh af al pi kain guf hanivra nivra me ayin leyesh. However, since creation is an act of revelation rather than concealment, creato ex nihilo should surely consist of the revelation of divine life force within the created being. How then do both these things manifest themselves at the same time? On one hand, the revelation of the divine life force; on the other, the condensation and concealment of this life force, so that the created beings will be unaware of it, and consider themselves to be independently existing entities and not utterly nullified within their source. Indeed, the paradox of tzimtzum defies the comprehension of mere created beings. Just as it is not within the capacity of the mind or any creature to comprehend the essential nature of the creation of being out of nothing, since the capacity for tzimtzum emanates from the divine attribute of Gevurah, one might erroneously infer that it actually serves to create an independently existing entity. Not only does the created being regard itself as such, but the Creator views it as well. For as in much as God causes this concealment in His attribute of Gevurah, the abilities to conceal is as real and as effective as His attribute of Gedulah, which is the creating something from nothing. His ability to reveal, we may mistakenly liken creation to the sun's rays insofar as they exist beyond the confines of the sun globe. Forestalling this possible error, the Alter Rebbe now explains that God's power to reveal and His power to conceal are truly one and the same. For revelation and concealment are respectively light, ore, and its vessels, kalim, which are fused in complete and total unity. Takeaway: a man will never comprehend how God creates matter, and simultaneously hides Himself, making the Creator unnoticeable. um, only only known through contemplation, yet the object nonetheless sustainable. Kamo she'ein yicholes v'seicho shum nivra lahasig mahus habria me'ayin liyesh. And then Shabbos's Tanya goes even deeper into that. And that was yesterday. Shaar hayichud emunah, chapter 4, continuation. In today's lesson, the two channels of revelation versus contraction are called light and vessel. So the vessel is the contraction, and the light is the revelation of the created being, something from nothing. The vessel being the divine letters. So Hashem creates all the world and the forms of the world through his divine letters by speaking it constantly, through the aleph base, used in creation, both stemming from the same one source, Atik. Atik is in the Keter of the sphere, if you know anything about that. And that inside of Atik is divine will and pleasure. Because Hashem has a pleasure in making the world. And there's really no reason besides the fact that he just desires it. And that's the whole secret behind Hashem's will. There is no ultimate reason other than he wants it. The tzimtzum and the concealing of the life force is called, in Kabbalistic terminology, kelim, vessels. And the life force itself is called light, which signifies revelation. V'hine bechinas hatzimtzum v'haster hachayos nivra b'shem kelim v'hachayos atzmai nikra b'shem or. For just as the vessel, as a vessel covers that which is within it, so does the tzimtzum cover and conceal the light and the life force that flows into created beings. And the tzimtzum makes it impossible for them to perceive the godliness that is vested within them. Shakamo shahak hakeli makasa al ma shebasoikoi kach bechinas atzimtzum makase umastir ha'or v'hachayos ha'shoifeya. The kelim are verily the letters of the divine utterances, like let there be light, let there be land, let there be waters. With their substitutions and transpositions, all the letters that form those utterances that Hashem used to create the world have many letters, and inside those letters are different combinations that you can rearrange those letters that form these different vessels. Or their transubstitutions and transpositions, etc., which are the life force of created beings. V'hakelim hein ha'osios. They are the letters. And all these letters are rooted in the 5 letters. Mem nun tzadik pei langa chuf. Shesharshan Hashem osios manitzvach. It is explained in the Kabbalah that these are the sources of all the letters. These 5 letters, Mem, Nun, Tzadik, Fe, and Langachaf, are the sources of all the letters. That's interesting. There's 5 letters in which all the other letters stem from them. Mem, this is what the Elder Rebbe is saying. These letters are the rooted in the 5 letters. All the letters.
Are we allowed to say that, or is that Hashem's name?
I don't think it's Hashem's name. It's not saying anything about it, except for these are the root of all the letters. Mem, Non, Tzadik, Fe, and Kaf. It is explained in the Kabbalah that these are the source of all letters, since they represent 5 degrees of Gevurah, the 5 restraining forces that divide and separate the breath and the mouth and the voice in the 5 organs of speech. Because when you do these sounds, ts, and cha, those use 5 different things inside your mouth to express them. And these are the separating.
It doesn't have la.
Yeah, it doesn't have la because I don't know why. Manatsa. Maybe because sa is more of a similar kind of mouth function as lamed, so it doesn't include that. It probably tzaddik comes from, like lamed stems from the tzaddik function, because it says all the letters are coming from them, and these are the source ones of how the mouth, when it articulates something, there's 5 ways the mouth articulates. And these are the degrees of Gevurah, the 5 restraining forces that divide and separate the breath and voice in the 5 organs of speech, thus enabling the 22 letters to be formed. Shehein Hashem Gevurois Hamchalkos Umafridus Havel Vahakol Vahashem Matza Ois Hapeh Vehis Havos Kaf Beis Oisios. Just as the 5 physical organs of speech divide sounds and letters into 5 separate categories, the labial means the lips. Certain sounds are used with the lips. Then there are other ones that are guttural, which is using the throat. When it says there's a guttural sound, it means the throat sounds, like cha is a guttural sound, and labial is like mim, because you're using your lips to say it, and etc. So too do the 5 spiritual levels of Gevurah give rise to the 22 supernal letters. So the source of the 5 levels of Gevurah is termed in the Kabbalah Butsina de Cardunita. Butsina de Cardunita, which is Aramaic for light out of darkness, signifying a level of concealment that transcends light. V'shayresh Hashem Gevurais Hu Butsina de Cardunisa. Butsina de Cardunisa. Interesting. It's Aramaic for light out of darkness. This is the supernal Gevurah of Atik Yomim. I guess I'm experiencing that Butsina de Cardunisa in certain aspects of my life. This is the supernal Gevurah of Atik Yomin, the spiritual level of Keter that transcends all worlds, including Atzilus. Shehi Gevurah Ilah De'atik Yomin. The higher level of Gevurah is the level of Atik Yomin, which is Keter, in the crown, above all the spheres. And correspondingly, the source of the various divine levels of divine kindness is Chesed of Atik Yomin. V'shayresh HaChasidim Hu Gam Heim Chesed De'atik Yomin. So Chesed is, so Atik Yomim is Gevurah, the higher level Gevurah Elyon, Ilah, and Atik Yomin, which is also in Keter, is from the side of chesed, supernal chesed, or chesed elah, maybe, if that's a word. As is known to the students of Kabbalah, keyadua l'yoidei chen. Since the Tzimtzum and the letters on one hand, and the revelation of divine light force on the other, excuse me. Both emanate from the level of Atik Yomin. It follows that the Tzimtzum does not affect an objective concealment, does not follow an objective concealment as viewed from their common source above. For, as previously explained, no entity can conceal itself from itself. Thus, Tzimtzum affects and is only felt by created beings who, because of this concealment, are unable to perceive the divine life force that continuously creates them. This is necessary in order for them to think of themselves as independently existing, a state which must be felt by them if they are to tangibly exist. In truth, however, they are utterly nullified within their source above. Takeaway: in Kabbalah terminology, the orot, or the lights, are the source of energy, but they are powerful forces of energy which need repackaging for defined immortal creations. Hence, the kalim, the vessels, which are conduits through which the energy is channeled to make it compatible. That's why we have bodies, because it's a form of constriction, tzimtzum, that allows us to have independence, yet be divine channels of spiritual influence and flow into the world. If we're in tune with that reality of ourselves, so then we're able to be channels for Hashem into the physical world where, limited beings are, and they don't understand or perceive God. But like through the Jew, a Jew could actually reveal to limited mortal creations that that there is a God, and that God is their source also.